The national crisis is over. Penn State once again has a wide receiver coach, and everyone has feelings about it. Nobody knows how to feel, but that's what we're talking about on today's show. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Penn State hired their second wide receiver coach ever under Matt Campbell. Took only 8 weeks to do it. 9 weeks, I think, something like that. We're going to be discussing that and what Penn State fans should know about the facts of the situation. And, of course, the people here to do it are Nate Bauer, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, and of course Sean Fitz, publisher, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us. Nate, what is your February protocol for, like, how do I phrase this? This is the planning month to me for the full year. Like, are you planning golf trips? I'm planning my garden. Like, what outdoor projects am I going to do this year? Because I spent the last 6 to 8 months thinking about things I'm going to do inside the house. Now I'm planning outside stuff. What are your what do you want to do? What are your outside ambitions now that it's going to be 50 degrees the next 2 days? You got to start thinking about it now.
I'm going to go for a power walk today. That's going to happen. I feel really good about that. It's my son's birthday today. At 5 years old, he's already smart enough to know to never watch this show. So that's good. But no, T-Frank, I kind of feel like you should know better than to think that I think in the future beyond the end of today. This is when I wake up in the morning, I'm not sure what's going to happen through the next 24 hours, but that's pretty much where my planning stops. Is
Fitz.
Hey, let's just do this.
The man has 2 young kids. He's got to stay. It's like if I were a kindergarten teacher, I'd just stay one lesson ahead. Just stay slightly ahead of the next thing that's coming down the tracks, because it's going to change, and you're going to, all of a sudden end up like Ollie's going to go to the Packers or something like that. And then you're going to have to, just scramble and find yourself a new Ollie. I'm not sure I should say your kid's name on the podcast, but I did that. So
don't kidnap him, please, people.
Here's the
different than you usually text. So you're just like, take this kid.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing that I've noticed. We have a successful show. We are successful enough that people know about us, but not successful enough that people care. So that's the sweet spot. We're in that
to kidnap
sweet spot.
our children.
Exactly. Yes. Any sort of controversy that surrounds us, everyone's like, who cares? And then we move on with our lives. So I'm genuinely, I feel safe for your children, although I completely understand your caution around that. Let's get into what Penn State fans are desperate to know about, and that is the new wide receivers coach. So last night, or yesterday afternoon, Fitz, if you want to break down this situation with Penn State, 2 weeks since the announcement, a week and a half since the announcement that Noah Pauley went to the Green Bay Packers, as you alluded to in that joke. What's the situation with Penn State football now?
Yeah, Penn State has a new receivers coach. It went through the process of interviewing a bunch of guys, going through a bunch of previous connections, and going from there and landing eventually on, how do I say this, former Colorado State wide receivers coach Kashif Moore, but also not really, because he did the Pauley. He went to Colorado State with Jim Mora Jr. from UConn, so he was at UConn last year. So he was never really the Colorado State wide receivers coach. He never got a chance to look at that robust real estate market in Fort Collins. Instead, he's going to go to State College. He's got some previous overlapping connections. Never coached on an actual staff with guys that are members of Penn State's primary staff, but they'd known each other. Also was told a really, really good interview for Kashif Moore a couple of weeks ago. You look back at what we were talking about in the qualities of a Penn State wide receivers coach, and development is there, or development has been there. It's not robust, but Skylar Bell, former Wisconsin transfer that went to UConn, was a Biletnikoff award finalist last year, one of 3 finalists last year, and it's pretty good development for a guy that was solid at Wisconsin, took a big step when he went to UConn. So Skylar Bell finished with 101 catches for 1,278 yards and 11 touchdowns in 2025. So there's some proof to the pudding there in terms of development. And again, a big step from where he was at Wisconsin. Not that he was bad at Wisconsin, but found himself a good home and developed there. You've got regional connections. He's a Burlington Township, New Jersey native, played at UConn, of course. So there are some Northeast New England connections in there as well. So just an interesting pairing now. You've got Savon Huggins, who is from North Jersey. You've got Kashif Moore, who is from South Jersey. And, all of a sudden, there are more connections here. Noah Pauley, I think, was going to be a very good recruiter for Penn State. I think he had a lot of the outgoing personality and really could was a magnet for some guys. Really hit it off with Khalil Taylor when he got here for Junior Day. But he wasn't long enough to establish those relationships. So I think Moore is going to be able to come in and do some of that. Of course, when you're recruiting with the UConn logo, UConn football logo on your jacket, does not carry the clout that the Penn State logo brings. So I'm curious to see all those guys that he would have worked to get in with early when he was at UConn up in the Northeast. How does that transfer over to Penn State? Because I think there's going to be some reception there that's pretty positive.
Nate, what's your read of the situation? What do you know about Kashif Moore and his journey so far?
Yeah, the feedback that I got was he fits the Matt Campbell profile of just down to earth, humble. That stuff, works hard, right? all the buzzwords, all the catchphrases that you can kind of describe. In terms of Matt Campbell's entry to Penn State culture, what he wants the program to be, what how he feels like he aligns. This is that in terms of the hire. I think that my initial look. There's this weird balance to be had in terms of the conversation of the last, really 15 years ish of Penn State football. And you can probably go before that, where some of the best receivers in the NFL, and T. Frank, you're an NFL guy, came from Penn State. Chris Godwin, it was that, right? Yeah. Allen Robinson was that for a while. Jahan Dotson didn't become that. KJ Hamler didn't become that. But these guys sniffed it. And Parker Washington, I think you can make an argument is kind of having some shine right now. Yeah. Right. So it's not as though Penn State as a program has been devoid of sending talent to the NFL from that position. But it's been bleak lately, right? And I think that's kind of where Moore picks this thing up, right? And so when you listen to Matt Campbell, when he went, I wrote about it yesterday, but when Matt Campbell, that last question of his press conference a couple of weeks ago, where he was asked kind of oh, hey, do you mind summing up the entire roster? And he did that, yeah. Right? When he got to receiver, it was, hey, Zay Robinson and Kobe Howard and Brett Eskelson and Chase Sowell, right? You got something to work with there. Yeah. With an acknowledgement of, hey, this was a thing that Iowa State felt it was a strength at Iowa State in terms of how they had generated receiver talent and developed it. And that they were bringing that and had a sense of optimism and confidence at what they could do at Penn State because they were bringing that with them. It was some of the players that they brought to Penn State and then some of the talent that they were inheriting. That day, Noah Pauley was still on the staff, right, at Penn State. So you just, right, the next day you had this transition of that guy who had maybe procured and developed some of that talent, moving on to the next phase in his career, going to the NFL. So now it's just hey, they're just, it is a situation where that position group, no matter who was taking the helm, is going to be under intense scrutiny. And right, it's just all eyes are going to be on it because of what the production has been of late for Penn State at that position.
I'm pulling this up here because I find the track record and all that stuff in the conversation. It's a very interesting part of the conversation. I'm pulling up his UConn page, which doesn't include his month at Colorado State. So I apologize that it does not have that valuable experience of living in Colorado for a month. But here it is. And I want to make a point not about his experience, but just about his age. 2019, he's Conrad, Connecticut High School assistant coach. And then by 2022, he's at Albany. 2023, he's at UConn. So as you mentioned, last 3 seasons. And now he's at Penn State. So functionally going from UConn to Penn State, 37 years old. Fitz, I find it striking, just the general, what seems like a plan to have young, up-and-coming coaches on the offensive side of the ball, where you have an offensive coordinator who's, I think, 33. You have a quarterback coach in his 30s, former players that are all in the first stage of their career. There are not a lot of guys on the offensive line. Young coach. This is not a staff that has like a resume. They don't have like put 30 different players into the NFL as wide receivers or offensive linemen or tight ends or whatever. So what is your take? What is your view on this process of trying to find coaches, I'm assuming with the energy and the ability to connect to the younger generation, but haven't really proven that they can recruit and develop in depth the way that I think coaches or that fans want? Because if there's one disconnect that I've seen throughout this process, it's that fans want something that tells them this year they're going to get a return on all of this. But it seems like Matt Campbell's building a staff for the long run here at Penn State. So how do you take that? Is it ready for prime time, or is this going to grow into the role sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, considering the work that he did with Skylar Bell at UConn. I mean, there's 3 Biletnikoff finalists. He's one of them. So like there's some development that is demonstrated there, right? This guy did not flop with the best receiver that he's had so far. Now, that is to say, he's young. He's going to step into an arena that is much bigger than he is used to, and he's going to have to sort of take the next step in terms of building relationships. I mean, you look at maybe a guy like Khalil Taylor, who's going to go in and be his first phone call. He's going to be his top target. Khalil Taylor probably doesn't know who he is. And there's some reality to that. There's going to be some building. But then again, a month and a half ago, or 2 months ago, Khalil Taylor didn't know who Noah Pauley was. So and we thought that coming out of his junior day visit, Penn State was in a really, really good standing because of Noah Pauley. So there's going to be that establishment. It's going to be about personality. It's going to be about setting yourself up to win those battles eventually, and sort of easing your way into it. I mean, he's just going to be dropped into the fire and go from there. And it's there's really nothing to say about it. And what we've heard from the last day or so, the response has been, I don't know anything about this, so it's bad. And I just don't know how you get there. And that's really, maybe it's an internet thing. Maybe that's just people are broken from the last year. But you find yourself in a situation where you wanted, this is an example. Like from what you were saying, okay, T. Frank, who was the guy that you were going to go out and hire? When it was a running backs coach, Stan Drayton was obvious. Like Stan Drayton was a guy that was looking for a job that had developed guys. You look out across the landscape and you're trying to figure out who that guy was. There's not too many of them floating around in February. And on top of that, like that does not fit the style that Matt Campbell has said. I've said it a million times. If you're going to trust Matt Campbell to run your program and reset your program, essentially, then this is what he does. And this is the format that's worked very well for him. Now, does that mean it's going to be a home run hire? I can't sit here and say that. Like, I don't know enough about this hire to sit here and say that this guy is going to be the guy that turns around receivers coaches. We stopped saying that probably 3 or 4 receivers coaches ago, because we know that it's a challenge. Now, the good thing here is it's a reset. It's a refresh, right? You're discarding the reputation of the offensive reputation of James Franklin, which drug with it the reputation of quarterback and receiver. After Parker Washington, maybe it can be argued Mitchell Tinsley, nothing happened. Like it was I've never seen anything like it before, because Penn State hasn't, as Nate said, been devoid of receiver talent for the entire time that James Franklin was here. You think back to Godwin and Dotson and all those guys that they've had, been really, really good players.
Yeah.
But then they just completely fell off. And were they too far deep into the hole where you're going in for 2, maybe 3, as in the case of last year, portal guys to turn it around, to give you more time to develop the guys that you had? At that point, you're just kind of pulling the rope down. And that's really where they found themselves. So a nice refresh is going to be good for anyone. And we're going to see how Penn State handles it as an entity.
It just takes one. It just takes one wide receiver to restart the trend. It just takes the evidence that one guy can do it, can go from Penn State to the NFL. With this new staff, they have the I think the cachet of saying that they've done it at Iowa State for a long time, going back to Hakeem. Oh shoot, I just forgot his name. The big body wide receiver a couple years ago that went in the NFL before Noah Pauley. I'll look it up later. But like they've been able. I wanted to say Keem Beeman, and that's not right.
That's definitely not right.
Definitely not right. There's that, right, of like, how do you get players to come to Penn State? It's not because they love Penn State. It's not because like their great granddaddy went to Penn State. Like in modern football, it's like you may have that, right? But also they want to go to the NFL. They want to be the best player at their position, and they want to have a track record, and a path to get to the NFL. So somebody in the chat,
and they want to get paid. Like, let's be honest here. Like some of the shine of the star recruiter has been wiped because you can make up for that with dollars. And that's really what Penn State has to continue to piece together, and how that works, and how that works with what Matt Campbell does and what their scouting department says that they'll do. But they're still going to shoot high, and they're going to have to, if he doesn't connect with them, like, right off the bat, you make up with that by your negotiation process and feeling good with not just Kashif Moore, but Alan Zamitis and all those guys in the recruiting office that have the constant conversation. So if you don't bring in an ace, known top guy that is a Rivals Recruiter of the Year, whatever it might be, that's fine. You can make up for it. It's just you have to come up with the money on the back end.
Big Ten Spirit wants to know, when he played, was he an X, a Y, or a Z? And unfortunately, I was doing a little bit of research here quickly during the show live to try and find out. He has no NFL snaps. He played for the Kansas City Chiefs for a couple of years, and the PFF database on their easily searchable stuff for everyone doesn't go back to 2013. Doesn't go back. I don't think it goes back past 2014. So it's tough to find some of that information for you in terms of how guys like this played in the NFL. But he's 5'9", 180, so I'm going to go ahead and assume just generic slot receiver body type there. Maybe he could play on the outside, but I would say at least the vibes there are slot receiver, and then we'll find out when we ask him where
he signed with 4 NFL teams. He never played. Like, he was a camp guy. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a lot further than most people make it. But he was a good player at UConn. Played in a couple of bowl games. Played in a BCS bowl, Fiesta Bowl, for UConn, and was a really, really good player in South Jersey. His size hurt him. He was 5'8", 5'9", 150 pounds maybe. And I think UConn and Temple were the two after him. Ended up at UConn, had a pretty solid career. So I think he was top 10 in receptions when he left UConn. It's pretty good.
Any final thoughts here, Nate? Anything before we move on to, if not, I'm just going to ask you about Anti-Fragile. So what do you got?
Yeah, I just, part of the conversation with Higgins was just the lack of bringing in talent acquisition like that. I don't know.
I think initially, they started to turn the corner in 25, and then Fitz, was he here long enough to really bring in talent? I mean, and do you consider the transfer portal part of that process? Because I think that's another aspect of it too, that can microwave success, but I don't know that that's necessarily directly tied to the wide receiver coach as much as it is, as you pointed out, the money angle through the portal is even more playing time, money, that sort of stuff. So, Nate, I agree with you, but I just don't know that he was here long enough to really get a sense of was he able to actually get guys that have the talent to play at this level.
Yeah, I think he started out as a recruiter that was very much in over his head, coming from Virginia. You expect different things, and I will say this, Marcus Higgins recruited Malik Washington to Virginia from Northwestern, and that was a guy that really nobody wanted in the portal. Turned out to be a really, really good player in the NFL now. So that's a Skylar Bell parallel, if you will. You found these guys and you were able to develop them. So I think that's positive. Hagens, I think, eventually did crest the corner. I'm not sure he completely turned the corner, but the 2026 class I thought was pretty good. LeVar Keys, Davion Brown, and Jasir Rogers, of course. So, and he had Khalil Taylor committed, so he was getting there. And I think it's sort of an amalgamation of how recruiting goes right now. And it's not just one guy anymore. It used to be like this is your guy, whether he's your position coach or your regional coach. This is the guy that I connect with most. Where the way that the Franklin staff did this, and they did a pretty good job of it, was to connect with multiple people along the way, all the way to the top. So I think that that's really what you're looking at now. And I think you're going to see that in the Campbell staff as well. It's not separate recruiting and coaching, but the recruiting staff does carry its weight, just like this last staff did.
Nate, I cut you off there. Did you have a second after that thought?
I get lost in, and this is for you guys more than it is for me, of the web of like responsibility, where like, how much responsibility does Drew Aller have for the first 6 games in terms of receiver production? How much does Andy Koldenicki and what they decided, right? That like none of this stuff happens in a vacuum. At the end of the day, I get to look at a stat sheet, right, that says what, and certainly PFF numbers and that kind of stuff that's kind of cursory. But like, why is it that when I watch Indiana play at Penn State, there are just these incredible game-breaking splash plays, right? Like they just, it upends the game. And not just that game, but multiple games of Penn State opponents this past season and the ones before then. I've mentioned this before. I'll mention it again. I do this stupid high-low, right, for every game that Penn State plays.
It's not stupid. Come on.
It's pretty dumb. The number of times that the best catch, little nugget, goes to either one of Penn State's opponents or a tight end or running back for Penn State is, in my mind, not coincidental, right? Like there is this theme to it of, hey, just it's an unremarkable thing, right? They just that position, just it's been a while since you can really say, hey man, that was a great play. That kind of helped Penn State win a football game. It just has not happened anecdotally at the level that Penn State needs to be successful at the level that they want.
Well, you have brought excellent insight, Nate, in this first half of the show. So right now I want to reward you by letting you talk about beer. So tell me about Anti-Fragile Brewing Company in downtown State College.
I'm overdue for a beer from that fine establishment. It is on East Calder Way, and it has the best beer in State College. It is constantly rotating selection of just every variety of beer that you can think of, right? They've got lagers, they've got imperial IPAs, imperial stouts, hazy IPAs, you name. It's just word vomit at this point, but
imperial IPAs had me for a second.
That's a thing. But
Oh no, so you're right. You're right.
You're right. It whatever the offering is, whatever you decide on, it's just really good. It's consistent and it's excellently brewed. Out front, they've got Uncle John's, which has, for my money, the best cheesesteak in State College. Just when you go down there, you will have a great time. The service is excellent. The beer is excellent. The food is excellent. And now they have Gemelli Bakery, which also is bread that while you're there, you can take home for the family for the next day. Unless your family is already there, in which case you can eat it on site. But yeah, Anti-Fragile, they are a great sponsor to have, and we try to pay that back by giving them all of our money every time.
All the advertising dollars flow back into Anti-Fragile. That's
I actually went twice this weekend, so he's not wrong. I went, obviously very romantic Valentine's Day spot. After dinner, we grabbed a drink there. It was great. And then Sunday, they catered my kid's birthday party, and by that I mean I went and ordered 4 cheesesteaks and had them cut in half, and it was part of the dinner platter. So very appreciative of them because it's both good. My wife was like, "Hey, have you had a cheesesteak since they switched the bread? They own Gemelli now, and that was a recent change." I was like, "Actually, no, I haven't." And she's like, "It's good. It's really good." So heated one of those up yesterday, or half of those up yesterday. It was really, really awesome. So no, we appreciate them, and we appreciate their continued partnership because I think it's been really good for both sides.
Yeah. Appreciate them. And of course, appreciate you guys here being on the BWI Live Show to hear it and to listen to it and to support them because we have an awesome symbiosis of you guys going there and telling them that you came from the show and them appreciating that. And of course, all the patronage helps to support them to keep awesome, cool things in State College that not every college town has. And I know it's a bar, right? But it's more than that. It's a place for us all. It's a community spot for us here that does not have like a cover and a live band and you have to get the app to get the line pass or whatever. Also want to remind you, if you want to support the show, subscribe. I haven't been to a bar with a cover in 10 years, guys. Come on.
That's good. You're not
I got married and I didn't need to go anymore. Support us easily, super easily by Nate. You're killing my transitions.
Sorry. They don't want us there. They don't want us at the bar with the cover. We're not for
It's
us.
not our crowd. Steven says this here in the chat. It says, good morning, all. T. Frank's YouTube on the 4-3 linebackers was super. Watched that last night. I'm putting up more all 22 clips, trying to do more coaches film here on the channel on Mondays specifically. So check those out. Help us out with those videos. The easiest thing to do is to like the videos and subscribe here to the YouTube channel. If you enable notifications, you never miss them. So like the video, all that great stuff. Appreciate everyone being here. I just wanted to slide that in here in our kind of like intermediate, not even a commercial break because the anti-fragile stuff gets out of hand. We start talking about random stuff anyway. But I do want to get us back on track now. The blue-white game finally has been announced.
Nope. Blue-white weekend has been announced.
Blue-white weekend has been announced. Thank you. So what do we know, Fitz? I'm going to just throw it to you so you can save me from myself for what I don't know and do, because I just know like it was on the site and you can read about it at bluewhiteillustrated.com. What do we know about blue-white weekend?
Blue-white weekend is April 25th, 2026, parentheses, more details to follow. And it's sponsored by Sheets. No, this is where you're at right now. So Penn State has its spring practice schedule. You can read that, Blue-white, Ryan wrote that up this morning. They're going to finish late. April 25th is the last practice. There's a bit of, I don't know if you heard about this, construction going on at the Beaver Stadium, which is a bit of hey, we don't necessarily want you guys there for a ton of this because there's construction and it's dangerous and all this kind of stuff. We got to make special concessions and all that. So I think they're working around this right now. Nate, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's a lot to be done here. It's not, this was never a sense of, hey, there's definitely going to be a blue-white game as we know it. And I think that's why they announced what they did, is that it's blue-white weekend. Hey, bring your family, bring your dollars, bring everything you can to, have that pump in the local economy on that weekend. And it's our last practice. We're going to figure out the steps along the way. So I think that's kind of where they're at with that. And Nate's about to stomp over that.
No.
Yeah, I don't think it's a finished product. Somebody asked if it was televised. Legitimately, they put out a tweet with a graphic and said, "Here's the day. We'll tell you the rest later." That's what I got.
I think that, and this is just vibes. Don't take it for, it's not gospel. I'm just talking here based on kind of what I've picked up, which is I think the perception was that Matt Campbell doesn't really like spring games. I think when he first got to Penn State,
that in the past, yeah. Now,
but I don't,
different circumstances there, but yeah.
And I don't think that's what this is. Like I actually think it's the inverse, where when he said that he didn't want Rocco Beck's first experience throwing a pass in Beaver Stadium in front of fans to be the first game, I think he meant that. And so I like in the stadium, lots of people, right? Like TV, that stuff. I don't know about that, but just the idea of like, even from the construction angle, of, hey, this is this like monumental operation to shut down construction and then reopen it up. That kind of got poo-pooed. Like, I think they're going to do it. It's worth doing for Penn State. They feel like it's worth doing it. And so they're going to do it. Right. So all the, like, I'm sure there will be logistical accommodations, right? Yeah, right. Like, you're not going to have, you're not going to have necessarily all the gates open, right? Like that all the normal access points to get into the stadium as a normal game day Saturday. I'm not sure that will be the case. Maybe it will. I guess I'm just like, they are definitely doing work on the East concourse. And so that is in addition to all the stuff that's happening on the West side. So right, like at this point, now you're talking about two bigger, right? So the end zone sides are like, it's not 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. You're talking about these wide swaths of the stadium that are under active construction.
There's just going to be more on your plate if you're going to plan it, basically. And that's why I think that we haven't heard anything yet. And to make sure they can do it, and that they want to do it. There's no spring portal window this year. Like last year, this was pushed to I believe last weekend in April once again, because there was a spring portal window that closed a day or two, like the day before. It was an informed decision at that point. This year, I think it's just this works with the practice schedule. They're starting practice a little bit later than they usually do, and Easter plays into it as well, because Easter is in April this year. So you're working around a couple of different landmarks, some of them physical, the stadium, some of them on the calendar, with Easter and with the portal, because they got to get out on the road then eventually, because the spring evaluation period will run from mid-April to the end of May. So that'll be something that they take into account, because they've got a lot of work to do in terms of getting out and getting their names out with top 27, 28 targets after the Blue White game. So the middle of March after spring break, they'll fire it up, and there's a lot of work to do in the next 2 months.
Can I follow up on that? Because it seems like the last time we had this conversation in January of there being in the open window after the transfer portal, stuff like that, or with junior days, like they took the time necessary and correctly to build the team through the portal, and didn't have junior days to try and get as many of those guys in, do the, handshake, hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. And here in the spring, also, by the sounds of it, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like that's also going to be a conflict here, where if you're a program maybe in the South or somewhere else where you can put it at the beginning of the month, your spring practice is over in the middle of April or wherever, you now have more of that time to do more recruiting. Is that a worried concern, or is that just interesting nugget note kind of thing?
I think it's just a different calendar than the competitors, because you're looking at how Penn State and everyone else will have to recruit. So you're going to start hosting recruits for practice in March, right? You're going to start having recruits for practice and bring them up for weekends and do all the regular things that everybody does. And then you're going to finish spring practice at the end of May, and then you're going to go out on the road. Evaluation period is 6 weeks long, but you can only recruit for 4 weeks of that. So the schools that end sooner, they get the same amount of time. They might get to the player a little bit earlier than Penn State will eventually get there, but they do get the same amount of time. So it's not an unfair advantage by any stretch of the imagination. It goes April 15th through May 23rd, and you get a certain amount of days that you can actually go out onto the road there. So it's not a hindrance to do what they're doing. It's just a matter of, it just changes the timeline. Your key right now, if you're Penn State, is to get those guys in for visits, for practices, for spring weekends, as it begins to get nicer, and you can get these guys around. If you want to showcase your program as a football all the way program, you want to get these guys in for practice to see those football coaches coach football, if that makes sense. So I think that is really the next step right now. And you're starting to see guys set up spring visits, getting here in late March and early April. And, again, Penn State spring break, is I guess a little bit earlier than some schools, but it is a workaround there as well, where you have to start spring practice after spring break. It makes no sense to start spring practice and then have your players go to, Punta Cana or wherever, and come back and try to practice football again. That seems like a recipe for disaster. So you just get that all out of the way, and then you start when you get back.
Did you guys go anywhere for spring break in college? Did you actually like go on trips, Nate?
What the Reading?
Yeah, I didn't go anywhere either. I forget that two things. One, people do that, and two, now these football players have money, so they can go to Cabo if they want to. That is
fine with
a
that.
new layer of that. That's not a problem. I'm just saying, like, I had never considered that. You know, everyone gets wrapped up in their own experiences. I went on the only way that I could get on a spring break trip was if I went on a mission trip. So I went to Atlanta and New Orleans and had the exact opposite experience of what you would think if you go to Atlanta and New Orleans for spring break. It was fun, but like wasn't like spring break. Like, spring break.
It's going to be, this is just an aside, but graduation is the 8th of May for Penn State. So they're like wrapping out 25th weekend, May 1st weekend. And then, right, like, so Penn State will be a buzz of activity in the last couple of weeks down the home stretch there for all the outgoing seniors and students enjoying their time at Penn State.
Larry Nepper jumped in the chat to help me out with who I couldn't remember from the wide receiver discussion. That was Hakeem Butler, not Hakeem Beeman. So my brain got 90% of the way there and then got lost on a detour. Hakeem Butler went into the NFL, I think it's a second or third round draft pick, was a pretty good wide receiver prospect coming out, I think like, 2016, 2017 time, before Noah Pauley was there. That was all I was trying to say is they've had an ability to get receivers into the NFL even before the guy that everyone thinks was the greatest thing because he had two guys that had 1,000 yards in 2024. And so, there's that hoping that it's more than just the receivers coach. The secret sauce is the offense. It's Matt Campbell. It's his view of football in general. Should have mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show, but we're bringing back the BWI Mailbag this offseason. So what we're doing is we're going to do it a little bit different. So if you're here on the live show, you can always ask a question. I've been saving a couple of them to put here into the mailbag, but over at bluewhiteillustrated.com, great time to remind you, subscribe here for just $1 to get access to the site to try us out, and then you can subscribe for a year. Keep on with us if you want to do that. We have the mailbag, which is going to be up all week long. And we're going to incorporate the mailbag into the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday show. So recruiting questions, for the most part, will go on to the recruiting show. We'll have questions for tomorrow's show, and we'll have questions here today on this particular show. So if you want to go and join and you want to get a question featured on this with all the pretty graphics and everything I build, then go to bluewhiteillustrated.com and sign up. It's a small perk. What you really get is infinite amount of access and time to yell at me because I had Kobe Howard in the third rung of offensive players by snaps and production for 2026 because of a bunch of different things. We can talk about that next in the BWI Mailbag. So let's start with a recruiting question here on the Tuesday show, but this is more about Kashif Moore. Nipa Joe B wants to know any info on Moore's recruiting abilities. Fitz, you mentioned he's from South Jersey. It seems like he's had a very young career. Is there any more detailed feedback or any more interesting nuggets that you didn't bring up earlier that you think kind of relate to his recruiting abilities and his relatability like we talked about?
Not really. Like I said, it's a different animal coming in from UConn to go to a spot like Penn State. And again, it's going to be a team effort more so than an individual effort. From what I understand, personable guy, as Nate said, humble guy, a guy that I think will resonate with people from the region. He is a product of the region, and a lot of people, when you talk to them in South Jersey about guys that have been really good players, but not necessarily like the big time prospects or anything like that. I think you find a guy like Kashif Moore there, so I think you'll be able to relate with some guys. I just think that's one piece of the puzzle right now instead of the entire thing, maybe as it would have been 5-10 years ago.
So, Nate, I'm going to ask you this. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not asking you that question.
He's
this
a great
one from
recruiter.
Doug String of Numbers over on the message board. Anytime you give me Doug 21988, I'm just doing Doug String of Numbers or Bob String of Numbers or We Are String of Numbers. What are some of the things, positive or negative, that Campbell's staff has done that have surprised you so far? Nate, do you have something that you've been surprised by? If you like, I can go first. I had a thought here from the staff building process of this, but do you have something that jumps to mind, or do you want me to filibuster while you think about it?
I want you to start.
Okay, so I thought it was interesting that he kept Trace McSorley. Not necessarily because just like it's an easy transition of like, thank you for your service. We got Jake Waters, we got other guys that we want to bring on. And it's not like Trace McSorley has been coaching for a long time. And it's not like he has this recruiting pedigree or any of the things that you might say. They didn't even keep any of the quarterbacks on the roster from last year. Other than, I should say, Lambert is still here. So like, I don't want to say none of them, but like, the scholarship players all left in the transfer portal, which speaks to the fact that he wanted Trace McSorley to be on the roster, which goes back to my point about this is a young staff. He seems to very much like to put together on the offensive side of the ball, up and coming coaches that he thinks warrant the development from him and his side of things and the relationship with the young players. And that was a mild surprise, I guess, early in the process that Trace McSorley was one of the few that was retained on the staff on the offensive side of the ball, because very much it was taking what was at Iowa State and bringing it over. There was not a lot of retention on that side from the offensive staff. So for me, that was the surprising thing initially. Do you have something for me at this point, Nate?
Sure. This isn't the staff. This is Matt Campbell himself. But just generally has brought in a different vibe. And, I think it's a thing that we'll have to wait to see what its impact is. But I just think, and again, like you cannot help but compare past to present. And when you're coming out of a circumstance where every day felt high strung and the Super Bowl isn't the right word, but like high stakes, right? And it is high stakes. And so it's a different management style, but like it's been presented to me, Fitz, I'm sure you've heard the same. Like it's not like that. It's not like that in the Lash building right now, right? In the Lash building, it is more of a, hey, it's February and everybody's got stuff to do. You know what your responsibilities are. Just ease yourself, like settle into how you do your job and do it well. And that's good, right? You don't have to feel like you're looking over your shoulder or that you're being, kind of criticized or over evaluated every step of the way. So I do think it fits Matt Campbell's persona, right? In terms of how he arrived at Penn State in the first place, of just kind of this down to earth guy, right? Who has a management style that matches that. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that evolves. Certainly the players are raring to go and want to, really get into the process of building football. And I can't remember 2 weeks ago if I mentioned this, but a big part of this right now is like, hey, you guys, like the football will come. Like that stuff, the X's and O's, all of that stuff will be there and will be absorbed and worked on, but not before you guys know what your identity as a team is, how to interact with each other, right? That team building process has emerged as being very important to Matt
and
Campbell.
Not lip service and
not lip service. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in an era where like, look, it's that was the thing that was important before as well, right? That was an important thing under James Franklin.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean specifically, but it is team building in this generation can be a bit about lip service because you're buying players from the portal, right? And so a lot of teams go through this transactional relationship with players to begin with. And so then you talk about, then they all get here and you go, okay, team building. And it's like, is that really important to you or is it talent acquisition? And so like, that was all I was trying to say.
Yeah, I think it's I think in my funny brain it's like trust falls, and it's not that. Right? It's not like your teammates will be there to pick you up.
I want to see Keanu Williams do a trust fall now.
Yeah,
I want to see.
absolutely.
I want to see who's trying to catch
you
him.
can get behind him then. Yeah.
But in terms of the priorities, in terms of what they're trying to do on the front end of this, I think that their heads and their hearts are in the right place, right? Like this is a unique challenge that I'm not sure. Look, Prime in Colorado, right? You've seen some across the college football landscape, some of these massive overhauls of programs that can be met with a thud when it's not accounted for with the delicacy that it deserves, right? Like by trying to thread the needle, by trying to do, by trying to put, like, it's just an investment. It's an investment in time, relationships, all of those things that they feel like will pay dividends and translate to the actual field in the fall.
Fitz, do you have any surprises you want to bring up?
I am surprised because when you take a look at new staffs coming in, and this is not just a Penn State thing, as I often say, this is a national thing. You want to make the biggest splash possible. We all remember dominate the state, and that is, there's credence in that strategy to build up what you're doing, especially on the home front, and to make that work as to take whatever you can to take the best 20 prospects from Pennsylvania right away. Great. They're not doing that. They are doing evaluations. They're sticking to their guns, to what they said they were going to do. I doubted that they were going to do that because there are some players in Pennsylvania. If you go down to the rivals rankings and you look at the state rankings, there are players in there that aren't great prospects, as the stars beside their name would lead you to believe. And again, this is way too early to be talking stars. It is February. We haven't done an update on the 2027 class since they were playing in their junior years. So a lot of movement to come. Penn State has established that they are going to evaluate their way through this. This new staff has established that, and they're doing that. And some of the guys on that list, and look, this is not a situation where they looked at Maxwell Hiller and said they don't want Maxwell Hiller. They just have been beaten on that one before. A lot of tail on that one that goes back into the fall. But you look down the list, and there are guys there that are not really considering Penn State as much as you would think, and there are guys there that Penn State is not really considering them as much as you would think. So they've stuck to their guns. Is it a winning strategy? We will see. Sometimes you should take those guys. You do take those guys that have a certain cachet about them, especially from Pennsylvania, maybe Maryland, New Jersey, those places to build it up. And, unfortunately, from a Penn State perspective, we have Penn State's class of 2014 and 2015 as an example here. And that's just so far in the past, so far in the rearview mirror, that essentially doesn't matter as much anymore. So
right.
I've been surprised with how Penn State has approached some of these guys, and they seem to believe that their evaluations are better than most, better than everyone's. And again, we're going to see how that plays out in the next couple of years, because it is not a here is the answer on February 17th situation. So I have been, number one, impressed that they've stuck to their guns. Number two, skeptical that that is the way to get it done right away. They've got no commits in the class of 2027, and I don't think it's time to panic, but it is time to look at it and say, wow, this is a much different approach than we are used to seeing under James Franklin, and it's going to take some getting used to. Some are handling it better than others.
Perfectly put. This one is for me. CTEL92 wants to know, your earlier work on the additions in Campbell's Portal Hall read cumulatively as rather bearish on Carson Hansen. So when I ranked him as the top overall player on our offense in my piece from this past week, our offense, it left him with an eyebrow cocked up. In your offense that is devoid of skill, is the offense devoid of skill, or has your assessment on Carson Hansen changed? No, this is not. Don't look at this as best player from 1 to 30 or whatever it was in terms of the way I was ranking these players. I put it into 3 different categories. I put it into the core of the offense, the all but starters in name, and then the guys that are going to be fighting for a position after that. And I think there was one that was finally like the depth pieces after that. So it's it's about the offense and how they're going to build it and what they want out of the offense. So first thing is they want to run the football. Second thing is they want to run the football. Third thing is they want to run the football with tight ends on the field. So to me, the core of the offense is Carson Hansen. And we played the comments about the running back room here on the channel after Matt Campbell spoke about that room. And he basically, in the way he detailed the room, gave you the depth chart. Carson Hansen, James Peoples, and then Quentin Martin. And Quentin Martin is on the outside looking in because he needs to gain 25 pounds this offseason, is basically what he said. Now, do I think Carson Hansen is the most talented running back in the room? I don't. But he said a bunch of different things about trust, most trusted player in the program. So if you want to have a basis where you're going to run the ball, not lose yards, and be efficient, that's what they're looking for from the offense. Do they need explosiveness? Absolutely. It is a huge red flag. And for people that just say, okay, then throw in Quentin Martin, he's your number one back, that's not how it works. That's not how football works. So I ranked Carson Hansen is the number one player because they're going to build the offense around running the football, and he's the number one running back by a clear situational designation. Now, they like James Peoples, and we'll see how much of a split that is. Is that a number one and a number two? He called them a 1-2 punch. He didn't call them a 1A and a 1B. And like these words, I think, are intentional, and they can change. Like this is going to all change. So this is, again, to then spin this into some of the grumblings about the article, is I did not have Kobe Howard in the starting core unit because they're going to run 3 tight ends. They're going to run 2 running backs. They're going to run 3 tight ends and 2 wide receivers. Is he better? Has he proven he's better than Brett Eskildson and Chase Soule in this offense? He has not. So if we're building an offense and we got 3 receivers, we've got two receivers, 3 tight ends, 2 running backs. The third receiver is by definition on the outside looking in. They have predominantly built this where over 60% of the total snaps for the receiver position went to 2 guys last year. Now, that's the picture in real time. The question becomes, can Kobe Howard change that picture with his performance and his presence in the program as he proves to them that he is worth changing the way they want to run the offense? The answer is absolutely. Yes, he can absolutely change this where they're not playing a 4th tight end as much as they're playing a 3rd receiver. They're going to play more 3 receiver sets because he can block and he can catch and he can create that dynamic problem that they want to have on offense. But they're not straying away from 3 tight ends. I don't see that happening. So that is the reality of how these players are placed. It's the importance of them. And then within those groupings, there's a little bit of like, what's the snap count going to be by the end of the year? And that's how I framed all these things, which I wrote in the article. But I think what happened is, Nate, you know this. People, they just read the groupings. They don't read the words. They just see like Carson Hansen number 1 and think, okay, best player on offense. It's not. When reading my stuff, it's never just about like best. It's always about what's the context of the situation? What are they trying to do here? And that's why I have Carson Hansen as number 1. I think it's going to be very important to the offense, but I have concerns that it's a plan that's going to be maybe pedestrian. Any thoughts on that, guys? Nate? You have Fitz. 2 eyebrows cocked.
Fitz. No, I think you covered it great. Yeah, that's all you. Yeah,
that was great. It was well done.
No, I mean it's.
I don't have an off ramp for my rants. I apologize.
No, you don't. But also, they haven't practiced once yet. Right. We've got a lot to talk about before spring ball. Some of it's going to be information. Some of it's going to be speculation. And a lot of this is going to be speculation. There's another question here about non-projected starting wideouts that interests us the most. I mean, we don't know these guys. And it's fine to say we don't know these guys. And that's not to say it's going to be another disaster at receiver either. Like there's different things at play here. So, it just plays into that sort of unknown. And yes, we got to fill space and we got to talk and we got to fill column inches and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's going to hit a high gear in late March, early April, where we get a little bit more of an idea of where these guys sit, because, you can bring in guys from the portal from anywhere And, this is the conversation we've had with Brock Reicher a couple of times. Is he going to be better than Dom Ruley? In theory, he was pretty well regarded in the portal. He had the Alabama offer, and Alabama wanted him to visit, and usually respect what Alabama does. But also, you just don't know until you get him there. And there's guys that have been starters at Power 4 schools that have gone to other Power 4 schools and become backups. And it's a crapshoot, if you will. So I'm fascinated to see what Hansen does. They're familiar with Hansen. I think he's going to be the starter when they open camp. How much did that matter? Probably not much, because they've got some talent there to work with. Now, I think that the thing to grasp when you're talking about running back is you've got a room whose probably floor and ceiling is lower than it was last year, because you were so used to Katron, you're so used to Nick, and now you're going to have to completely rebuild that room in a different way than it would have been rebuilt had everyone stayed. And I think that's the thing to get across is the expectations are unknown at this point for that group, except that they're probably not going to be Katron Allen, which is pretty much normal for college football.
Pretty reasonable expectation is not Katron Allen. There's a wide swath between what Katron Allen was and what most running backs can do. Nate, do you want to answer the question about interesting wide receiver depth?
Keep me out of this.
Okay, I'll pivot to this one. This is my question, and I got a couple others here in the chat we need to get to as well. There is this very clear among Penn State fans assumption that their players are better. Kobe Howard is light years better than everyone else on the roster at receiver, and Quentin Martin Jr., why aren't we talking about him as a starter? How do you view the situation of the guys they prioritize to bring in from Iowa State and the guys that are on the roster as they try to do this team building thing you talked about? Because that's a big part of it.
Oh, by the way, it's a new position coach that's not from Iowa State too. So right. That matters. Matt Campbell's seen these guys, but Savon Huggins hasn't seen these guys. You got different positions with different openings that, the defensive line is fascinating as well. There are a lot of these things where you're just not going to know until you get them out there in the field. And that's completely fine because they don't have a game for 7 more months or whatever it might be. So, it's I understand we want wins right now, but there are no games to be played of consequence before the end of August or beginning of September, I guess it is this year.
Yeah.
Coaching, part of the complaint last year was this idea of favoritism, right? That I think generally that's a fair way to describe the sentiment, the fan sentiment around who played and who didn't play, right? That specific to even Singleton, right at the beginning of the year, it was clear in people's minds that Nick was not performing at the level of Katron. And then by the time that Terry took over, he made that change, right? And that was something that Franklin didn't, right? Is that they had maintained a pretty even split. Trust and perception and plans are built on reps. It is built on practice. It just is. It's built on the meeting room. It's built on, in some cases, years, right, of this comprehensive understanding that you have as a coach of what the players in front of you are capable of doing, whether they do it or not, right? It is such a limited sample size in the game itself that you can look at things and evaluate it on film of what happens in the game and say, well, that was this player's fault, but some of it wasn't his fault, right? Some of it was factors that were beyond their control. And so you stick to the things that you believe based on what you've seen in practice, again, over this wide stretch of time. Matt Campbell, Taylor Mauser, that entire offensive staff, right? They're going to enter this equation with that built up history for top players at every position group. Every single one. They brought a top player from every.
Sorry, you're wrong. Prometheus has spoken. It's absurd. Martins and people are better. So you're wrong.
I'm not here to to debate it because I don't know. I'd like to see these things in action. I think that the beginning of the season, the non-conference schedule will show Penn State some things, but I really caution this idea that that history for those players is not important with this staff. Like, they brought them over to Penn State from Iowa State for a reason. And there were players that they didn't bring from Iowa State for a reason, right? It was an intentional move in terms of the senior players, the older, more experienced guys that they wanted to kind of set a standard. Like, that history doesn't just evaporate because there's some talent in the room or things that people believe is talent, right? That was an important part. Like, again, I mean, this is Noah Pauley, right? So at this point, he has no skin in the game, but when he was talking about it, he did. It's like, hey, there's a difference between the cut-ups that you saw on Twitter when some of those guys were entering the transfer portal, right? Of receivers who were like, hey, look at me.
Here are my best plays.
Yeah, look at me juke these guys out of their shoes. And Paulie talked about it, like, that's cool. That's good. But also, practice is thousands of plays. They have cut-ups of thousands of plays, right? Like, and so when you get to evaluate thousands of plays, and like, that's what they did. That's what when Matt Campbell's staff first got to Penn State, they dove in head first on not the 1 minute cut-up, days of evaluating every single player that was on the roster that they had an opportunity to retain or not. And that is what leads to the perceptions of where these players are, what their areas for development are, right? It's going to be more familiar to this staff for the guys that they brought from Iowa State because they've been with those guys, but also trying to set this foundation from the immediate of, hey, this is the players that they retained. When they talk about Tony Rojas, there's a reason why they have that respect for him. He's shown it in games. He demonstrated those things in his practice film from last year before he got hurt. Like, he gets to carry that with him. Some of these other guys don't have that. Like, that wasn't there in games or in practice. And it doesn't lie, right? The film of practice over again, time and time again, it doesn't lie. You can't hide from it. And they know that. And it will inform some of what their perceptions are coming out of the gates.
We saw faceless Twitter accounts posting Anthony Ivy's practice highlights and saying, how could James Franklin not get this onto the field? What's Anthony Ivy's most memorable play as a Penn State receiver? Anyone?
Didn't the ball hit him in the head? The ball hit him in the head one time.
Purdue. He had a bunny and he dropped it. I mean, this is where we're at. We're so.
But also, that's not defining either, right? Like, that doesn't mean that he can't have.
But that was his opportunity. That was his opportunity on the field,
which means more than the practice field. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just incredible to watch the scrambling on this, on all of this to get a piece of information, not the whole picture, and then turn it into, well, I don't know enough about this, so it must be bad. It must suck. And we're going to see over the next couple of months how this plays out, and it's going to be fun to watch. And if you allow yourself to make it fun to watch for yourself, it's going to be fun to watch. If not, then I can't help you.
My wife has informed me multiple times that I'm bad at teasing. And like, you guys ever watch New Girl? You know, Winston doesn't know how to dial in pranks. It's either like murder somebody or something so obscure. That's me with trying to tease people. So I think I hit a nerve with Prometheus. I had a question for him earlier in the show that I wanted to throw up here for you, Fitz, because he has some concern in the chat. So I want to end with this one, even though we're a little bit over time, because I want to give him, the stage here at the end after maybe going a little too hard. Do you think elite guys in recruiting will pass on Penn State because there are not elite players on the team? His point is elite likes to play with elite. They want to win championships. They want to play with the best, and Penn State does not have a pedigree right now of elite recruiting. Do you think that is an issue for Penn State of a perception?
Yes, I think it is, but I don't think that that's close to the entire story, because that was the perception and the results beforehand, right? This is not a new thing for Penn State. Penn State is not flashy enough for some of the elite talent. It is not in the right location for some elite talent. It is not paying as much as some of the other schools will for elite talent. So it's more than just stacking talent on talent. Now, there is an argument to be made here when we're talking about the 2027 class under the microscope, is that you want to get this thing rolling. So it would have been very nice to have Keemon Spell in the class. It would have been very nice to have Khalil Taylor in the class. So when those guys are on board, you have the confidence that, hey, I can jump into this. We saw, Dante Thornton is kind of the flag bearer for this. Dante Thornton was in the class by himself for a long, long time, and nobody joined him. And then he was kind of like, okay, well, is this place where nobody wants to be, even though I'm an elite talent? Like that is the question that he had, and he eventually ended up at Oregon, where a lot of elite talent wants to go right now. So you're looking at a bigger picture, but in this class of 2027, it would be nice to get rolling so that they could have some proof of concept of, hey, there are guys jumping on the boat that believe in this and want to go with it. But I get the sense that they're not all that worried about pressing guys and putting guys to the edge to make a decision. And I think that's, I don't want to say a questionable tactic, but that's not the tactic that we're used to seeing around Penn State. So yes, I do think that will be an issue, but I don't think it's much more of an issue than it was previously at Penn State. I think it's a Penn State as an entity issue more so than a Matt Campbell issue.
All right, we'll talk a little bit more about that on the BWI Live recruiting show on Thursday, generally talking about recruiting. And, of course, tomorrow coming up, we have the Wednesday show with me and Greg, so I'll be back. Fitz will be back on Thursday. Nate, thank you for your time this week. Always love hearing your perspective on stuff. I thought this was a great start to the Tuesday mailbag, having it back on the show. If you've got any questions, throw them over on the Blue White Illustrated message board for tomorrow and on Thursday. We'll be back with more here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. We'll talk to you later.